Welcome to Willow Oak's Value Hour. I'm Jessica Greer, and joining me for today's episode is Mary Kate LaCroix, who oversees back office operations for Willow Oak's fund management services. Thank you for being with us today, Mary Kate.
Thanks for having me.
So, we get a lot of inquiries from aspiring and existing managers who, quite frankly, are overwhelmed or intimidated by the operational burdens associated with launching and running a fund. This makes sense. Their expertise lies in managing the portfolio, and that's what makes them exceptional investors. The operations necessary to successfully operate and grow a fund can really be a distraction from managing the portfolio. Actually, I was just talking to one of our managers the other day who kind of off the cuff was quipping, gosh, I don't know what I'd do if I had to do all of it. And that's really the why behind fund management services. Willow Oak's FMS, as we call it, offers solutions and support for funds that are looking for that infrastructure to scale without taking on the additional burden of operational management. So this episode is really intended for the current or aspiring manager that feels like they have more questions than answers when it comes to managing a fund's operations. Wouldn't you agree, Mary Kate?
Absolutely. So our team is happy to provide the operational support so that the fund manager can really focus in on their portfolio. And this includes administrative support like bookkeeping and compliance and investor relations and strategic planning. And we are happy to do it all and to work with them. And, it's been wonderful. So could you share more about what the day-to-day operations look like from a fund manager's perspective? So what exactly can they expect from being on the platform?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I think the operational component can turn into a full-time job. And our objective is to really help remove early on some of the operational distractions from the portfolio manager's plate. How do we do that? Well, we work with all of the typical service providers and that a fund would typically employ. That's the administrator, tax and audit team, legal and compliance consultants, and we coordinate all of the day-to-day activities to help the fund manage and grow. We use a weekly meeting structure with each fund manager to review all of the elements having to do with our investor base, operations, marketing opportunities, all of that. So what it looks like on a weekly basis is maybe an hour and a half meeting. And we sit down via a video conference call like this, and we go through the existing and prospective investors. This is really a discussion of how we are qualifying and cultivating the relationships that we have with existing investors and new inquiries that are coming into the fund. And let me be clear, we really serve as the front line when it comes to new inquiries. We maintain the incoming email inboxes. So those aren't necessarily going to the portfolio manager as a distraction. They're coming to us. We can vet the individuals coming in. We can answer questions. The weekly meeting is an opportunity to then discuss that and review it with the portfolio manager. We also handle all of the operations during this meeting. This is really an opportunity just to inform, keep the portfolio manager updated on kind of the bookkeeping, the compliance matters, as audit and tax season heats up, we're keeping them apprised of where these activities stand. So it's really just for informational purposes so that they can rest easy that all of these elements are being handled by the Willow Oak team. And then finally, and very importantly, the marketing discussion. So when we first bring a fund manager on board, we'll adopt and apply a marketing and communication strategy for the fund. And then we hold ourselves accountable to that. That involves the tear sheet, distribution of the tear sheet, the pitch book on a quarterly basis. We handle those types of updates and production pieces. The portfolio manager, of course, produces quarterly letters and written research pieces throughout the year, but all of the distribution is handled by Willow Oak and the maintenance of that distribution list. So we do really emphasize the importance of maintaining this weekly meeting in order to really stay responsive, to be nimble. The markets move all the time, and we want to be sure that we are really taking advantage of every opportunity that may arise on an ongoing basis to connect very specifically with an investor or a prospective investor, to take advantage of travel that the portfolio manager might have. We would always be discussing that, elements like that. So that's really the importance of keeping that interaction weekly, but really being conscientious of preserving the portfolio manager's time to stay focused on the portfolio.
That's great. That's great. It makes a lot of sense. And so something else in terms of thinking about what portfolio managers might be interested in hearing more about. One thing that we've heard portfolio managers are a little overwhelmed by or intimidated by is compliance. And I know you touched on that a little bit. Would you be able to share more about how Willow Oak works with the funds to ensure that they're in compliance with all of the various regulations?
Yeah, sure. This is a really, really increasingly important component that Willow Oak offers to the funds on our platform. So what we've found is that formal compliance programs are often something that gets overlooked by a small fund because they just simply can't justify the costs of it. And since they kind of fall under the threshold, early on, they don't have to devote the same resources and attention to some of the higher level compliance necessary as they continue to grow. However, at Willow Oak, we really believe in getting operations right from the start. Through Willow Oak, our funds not only have the benefit of our best practices, but also access to our existing compliance and legal counsel partners. We also have great affiliations that we maintain with membership organizations like AMA, that's the Alternative Investment Management Association. And as members, we have access to webinars and best practices and DDQ templates, things like that. So I serve as the Chief Compliance Officer for each of the funds. In this role, I'm responsible for executing each fund's compliance program, and we make that unique to each fund, although there is kind of a template to follow. Mm-hmm. And so we produce and adopt and activate policies and procedures, business continuity plans, codes of ethics, cybersecurity programs that are probably far more sophisticated than they'd be able to kind of deploy on their own. The importance of having these policies in place has become even more evident with the changing working environment that we're seeing due to the impacts of COVID-19. So really, there's no denying the emphasis that small funds even should be putting on their compliance programs. Another extremely important value add we provide is administering the fund's due diligence program. And this is really an imperative as a fund seeks institutional capital. This, of course, includes not only producing a formal DDQ, the due diligence questionnaire that institutional investors are looking for, but we also coordinate the activities of relevant investment and risk management and valuation committees within the fund. So beyond this, we also provide documentation services. This is probably something small funds don't even think about, but email archiving is a big issue that funds should be aware of. We maintain a CRM where we're capturing extremely relevant information and interactions between the fund managers, the operational team, and the investors. And then simply procedural documentation. If we're doing it, you document it. And that's something that really goes overlooked by a lot of small managers.
Great. And so you just spoke a little bit about, the importance of the communications with the investors. Could you share more about investor relations and how you work alongside with the fund managers on investor relations?
Oh yeah, this is actually the fun part. I especially love getting to interact with our investors. It's a lot of fun. We have a great investor body. But you know, really the key to our investor relations is being responsive. It
Mm,
might sound really simple, but again, when a manager is busy managing their portfolio, checking their email and responding to investor inquiries is not necessarily at the top of their to-do list. And we'd argue that it shouldn't be. There are times when we need to get the portfolio
sure.
manager involved, and we absolutely do. We don't speak, for the portfolio manager, but from an operational and logistical standpoint, it's really great again to be that first line. And we offer a single point of contact, which is oftentimes me. Uh, our investors can count on getting timely responses to their inquiries, which is very key, especially when they are considering making, they're considering an investment, they're making that decision. They need to be able to count on the information that they require, when they're asking for it, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're there to answer those questions in a very timely manner. So I often conduct pre-calls with investors to get a good sense of what their investment mandates might be, if they're institutional investors, what they're looking for on a personal level, if they're making a personal investment, what kind of rounding out of their portfolio maybe they're looking for. And I'm also here to walk them through the fund's offering documents in the onboarding process, which can be complicated. There's a lot of details involved in actually making an investment in the fund. So again, I want to be very clear that Willow Oak FMS team, we do not play a role in the management of the portfolio or speak to it specifically. So we make the justified determination of when to bring the manager into the conversations, and it's been a process that has really been beneficial to the managers on our platform. Again, kind of preserving their time and keeping them focused on the portfolio.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. And I think it's interesting because you probably have certain of the managers want to be involved more than other of the event managers might want to be involved. And I think it's up to you to be able to strike that balance with them and in conversations with them to
tailor and it's great. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we're able to tailor the services according to the needs of each manager in that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. So lastly, wanted to talk a little bit, and I think another thing that fund managers would be interested in is thinking about growth. So that's something that the fund manager and of course their investors, they're always thinking about how can they grow their AUM. How does Willow Oak work with the managers to help to grow their AUM?
Yeah. Absolutely. Growth is very on the forefront of everybody's mind, certainly. And there's no denying that the infrastructure that we're putting in place does support the fund's ability to scale. Everything we've discussed in terms of operational support ensures that the fund manager can manage the portfolio, provide meaningful returns to investors, and then add on that layer of, the fact that the institutional investments, those that will really be making large allocations to the funds, they're looking for that infrastructure. It's a prerequisite. So in addition to that, we at Willow Oak offer our managers access to our network, which includes the managers on our platform, our professional colleagues, as well as a really impressive advisory board. We're able to connect newer investment managers to managers who have been doing this for decades, really, and they have great insights to offer, whether it be from successes or failures. Both are of tremendous value to share with more fledgling managers. So that's just always been a great value add that we have. And then, of course, exposure is key to growth. And that's where we spend a lot of time focusing on opportunities. Many in our audience know that Willow Oak hosts in-person meetings throughout the year. And while we've had to pause those for the time being, we do anticipate getting those back on track, because our in-person meetings just offer great opportunities for our managers to not only showcase their funds on a kind of a mass level, but also cultivate those really meaningful relationships with our investor base. And that contributes to the level of information, transparency that investors really do require. They're looking for it. We'd like to deliver that to the extent that we can. So we, even beyond the large meetings, we offer in-person meetings throughout the year, depending upon travel and things like that. We look for opportunities like that on an ongoing basis. We also take advantage of the hedge fund databases that are out there, and we profile each of the funds and maintain profiles of each of the funds on databases like Bloomberg and Morningstar, Seeking Alpha, SumZero, just to name a few. These are known, credible databases that especially institutional investors rely on to kind of make those cap intro introductions. And so, not using those resources would be a major failure. And we put a lot of time and emphasis on making sure that we're well represented there. And then finally, we're thinking outside of the box. We're looking for more opportunities to develop series like our Value Hour, this series that we're doing. We look for opportunities to team up with popular investment podcasts that want to showcase and feature our managers. So we have a lot of great connections within our network that we continue to cultivate. The opportunities are really limitless, and we're having a lot of fun exploring new avenues to offer our funds exposure. So on that note, I think we can probably close this episode. Look forward to providing more kind of operational insights to these audiences. Perhaps bring in some of our providers, our partners who work with the funds directly for more information on compliance matters, tax and audit matters, things like that, things that really should be foremost on the manager's mind. And I'd like to invite any manager aspiring or currently managing a fund. If you have any questions about Willow Oak's fund management services, get in touch with me. You can reach me directly at jessica@willowoakfunds.com. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and YouTube to stay posted on more episodes like this. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Willow Oak Value Hour.
Thanks so much.